I'm Kelly, 32, and I've always believed family comes first. Growing up, I watched my parents struggle financially, but still host every family gathering. When I finally became successful as a financial advisor, I wanted to give back. That's why I spent $13,200 renovating my parents' backyard for their 35th anniversary. But just days before the celebration, I received a call from my aunt that left me speechless. Now I question everything about my family relationship. Before I continue my story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button and join our community. I read every comment and would love to connect with you. Growing up in Portland, my childhood was defined by watching my parents work tirelessly to provide for our family. My father Thomas worked as an electrician during the day and took on handyman jobs on weekends, while my mother Marie juggled shifts at a local diner and cleaned office buildings in the evenings. Despite their exhausting schedules, they somehow managed to keep a roof over our heads and food on the table. Our home was modest by any standard. A small 3-bedroom house in a middle-class neighborhood that needed constant repairs. The paint always seemed to be peeling somewhere, the kitchen appliances were outdated, and the carpet had seen better days. But what our house lacked in luxury, it made up for in warmth. Despite our financial limitations, our home became the unofficial gathering spot for our extended family. Every holiday, birthday, and special occasion would bring a house full of aunts, uncles, cousins, and family friends. Sometimes I wondered how we managed to fit everyone inside our small living room, but somehow we did. The atmosphere was always filled with laughter stories and the aroma of my mother's cooking. The backyard became the heart of these gatherings, especially during summer months. It wasn't anything special, just a small patch of grass with an old wooden deck that my father built before I was born. The deck wobbled slightly in certain spots, and the grill was second-hand, but nobody seemed to mind. Those backyard barbecues represented everything important about family to me. My father and I shared a special bond. While my mother was often preoccupied with work or tending to my younger siblings, my father would take time to teach me things. He was particularly adamant about financial responsibility. Save first, spend second, he would tell me as we sat on that old deck. He would show me how to calculate expenses, explain the importance of emergency funds, and share stories about his own parents who had struggled during the Great Depression. "Money comes and goes, Kelly," he would say, "but family is forever." Those words stuck with me throughout my life, shaping my values and priorities. My relationship with my mother was different. She loved me. I never doubted that, but there was always a distance between us. Marie was a practical woman who showed affection through acts of service rather than words or hugs. She worked tirelessly to keep our household running, often sacrificing sleep to ensure our clothes were clean and our lunches were packed. I have 2 younger siblings, my brother Jack, who is 4 years younger, and my sister Amanda, who is 6 years younger than me. As the oldest, I often took on a caretaker role, helping with homework or making dinner when our parents worked late. This created a different dynamic between us. They saw me as a third parent sometimes, which complicated our relationship as we grew older. After college, both Jack and Amanda moved away. Jack headed to Chicago for a job in marketing, and Amanda settled in California after meeting her husband during an internship. I was the only one who stayed in Portland, partially because I had secured a good job, but mostly because I wanted to remain close to my parents as they aged. My professional journey began with an accounting degree from Portland State University. I worked for a small accounting firm for several years before earning my certification as a financial advisor. Through dedication and long hours, I eventually built a client base that allowed me to open my own practice. The business thrived, and for the first time in my life, I had more than enough money to meet my needs. Meanwhile, my parents continued to struggle. My father's back problems forced him to reduce his working hours, and my mother developed arthritis that made her diner shifts increasingly painful. They were approaching retirement age with minimal savings and a house that needed significant repairs. The backyard deck had become dangerous with rotting boards, and the grill had finally died after 20 years of service. Every time I visited them, I noticed something else in need of fixing. The gutters were sagging, the fence was falling over in places, and the landscaping had been neglected for years. My parents never complained. They simply adapted hosting smaller gatherings or moving celebrations indoors, regardless of the weather. As my financial situation improved, I felt an increasing desire to give back to the people who had sacrificed so much for me. They had always prioritized family gatherings over material comforts, choosing to bring people together rather than updating their home or taking vacations. Now I wanted to make sure they could enjoy their retirement years in comfort, surrounded by the family they loved so dearly. This desire would eventually lead me to make a significant financial commitment, one that I believed would strengthen our family bonds and create new memories for years to come. Instead, it revealed truths about my family that I never wanted to face. The idea for renovating my parents' backyard came to me during a Sunday dinner at their house last spring. We were squeezed around their dining table because it had rained unexpectedly, cancelling the backyard barbecue my father had planned. I could see the disappointment on his face as he looked out the window at the rain-soaked yard. "Maybe next year we can finally fix up that old deck," he said with a sigh. "For our 35th anniversary, I'd love to host a proper family gathering out there." My mother nodded in agreement but added, "We'll have to see what the budget allows. The roof needs work first." That conversation stayed with me for days afterward. Their 35th wedding anniversary was only 4 months away, and I knew they would never prioritize the backyard renovation over more pressing home repairs. That's when I decided to take matters into my own hands. I secretly contacted a landscape designer named Sophia, who had helped one of my clients transform their outdoor space. She agreed to meet me at my parents' house during a time when I knew they would both be at work. I showed her around the neglected yard, explaining my vision for creating a space where my parents could entertain comfortably. "I want something low maintenance but beautiful," I told her. "Something that will last for years and accommodate at least 20 people comfortably." Sophia walked the space taking measurements and photos. She asked thoughtful questions about my parents' preferences and how they typically used the yard. Within a week, she presented me with a detailed renovation plan that took my breath away. The design included a stone patio to replace the decaying wooden deck, a built-in fire pit surrounded by comfortable seating, an outdoor kitchen area with a new grill and counter space, and a garden area with native plants that would require minimal upkeep. It was perfect. Practical yet beautiful and ideally suited for hosting family gatherings. When Sophia showed me the estimated cost, $13,200, I took a deep breath. It was a significant amount of money, but not beyond what I could afford. I had been saving diligently for years and had recently received a substantial bonus after bringing in several high-value clients. This felt like the perfect way to use that money. I spent several evenings reviewing my finances, calculating whether I could manage this expense without compromising my own financial security. The numbers confirmed what my heart already knew. I could afford to do this for my parents. I decided to move forward with the project. Convincing my parents to accept such an expensive gift was another challenge entirely. They had always been fiercely independent, reluctant to accept help even when they needed it. I decided the best approach was to present it as an anniversary gift that would benefit the entire family, not just them. I invited them to dinner at my apartment and presented Sophia's designs over dessert. My mother's eyes widened as she flipped through the renderings, while my father remained silent, his expression unreadable. "This is your 35th anniversary gift," I explained. "A space where you can host family gatherings without stress, where you can relax in your retirement years." "Kelly, this is too much," my mother protested. "We can't accept something so expensive." "You've given me everything throughout my life," I replied. "Please let me give you this one thing in return." My father studied the designs again, lingering on the outdoor kitchen area. "The grandkids would love this space," he admitted, referring to my cousin's children who visited occasionally. After some discussion and gentle persuasion, they finally agreed. My father's acceptance was reluctant but genuine, while my mother quickly became excited about the possibilities, already planning gatherings and family meals in the new space. With their blessing secured, I contacted Sophia to set the project in motion. I made the first payment of $5,500 to the contractor Marcus, who came highly recommended and could complete the work before my parents' anniversary. The remaining balance would be paid in installments as the work progressed. The demolition began the following week. I took a half day off work to be there when Marcus and his crew arrived, watching as they tore down the old deck that had been the site of so many childhood memories. There was something bittersweet about seeing it go, but I reminded myself that we were making way for new memories. Throughout the renovation process, I visited my parents' house frequently to check on the progress. Each visit brought new excitement as the backyard transformation took shape. The stone patio was laid with precision, the fire pit constructed with beautiful masonry work, and the garden areas prepared for planting. Marcus estimated that the project would be completed just 1 week before the anniversary party, giving us enough time to add finishing touches and for my parents to become comfortable with their new outdoor space. Everything was proceeding according to plan. I also secretly purchased new outdoor furniture. A dining table large enough to seat 12 people, comfortable lounge chairs around the fire pit, and colourful cushions to add warmth to the space. These additional expenses weren't included in the renovation budget, but I wanted the space to be completely ready for entertaining. As the project neared completion, I felt a sense of pride and accomplishment. This gift represented more than just a physical space. It was a tribute to my parents' dedication to family, a thank you for all their sacrifices, and a way to ensure their retirement years would be filled with the joy of family gatherings. At least that's what I thought at the time. As the backyard renovation moved into its third week, unexpected complications arose that tested my patience and my budget. The crew discovered drainage issues that needed to be addressed before the patio could be completed. This required additional excavation work and the installation of a French drain system to prevent water from pooling around the foundation of the house. It's going to add about $1,800 to the total, Marcus explained apologetically. But it's not something we can skip. Water damage would destroy all our work within a year. I agreed to the additional expense without hesitation. This project was too important to compromise on quality, and I wanted everything to be perfect for my parents. The drainage work added 3 days to the timeline, but Marcus assured me we were still on schedule to finish before the anniversary celebration. During this period, I visited my parents almost daily, helping them cope with the disruption to their routine. Construction crews arriving early in the morning, the constant noise and the lack of privacy took a toll on them, particularly my mother, who worked from home 2 days a week. Just think about how wonderful it will be when it's finished, I reminded her during a particularly dusty afternoon when the workers were cutting stone for the patio. My mother nodded but seemed distracted. It will be lovely, she agreed before changing the subject. I've been talking with your Aunt Linda about the anniversary party. This was the first time she had mentioned specific plans for the celebration, and I was eager to hear more. What are you thinking? A casual barbecue or something more formal? Oh, nothing too fancy, she replied vaguely. Just family gathering to celebrate. I noticed her phone buzzing with texts throughout our conversation, and she kept glancing at it. When I asked if everything was okay, she smiled too brightly. Just Linda with some ideas about the party. You know how she gets with planning things. My Aunt Linda, my mother's younger sister, had always been the family event planner. From birthdays to holidays, she loved taking charge and organising gatherings down to the smallest detail. It made sense that my mother would consult her about the anniversary celebration, but something about my mother's demeanour made me uneasy. Over the next few days, I offered several suggestions for the celebration. A catered meal to reduce my mother's workload, hiring a photographer to capture the event, even arranging for a small musical performance by a local guitarist my father admired. Each suggestion was met with non-committal responses or gentle deflection. "We'll see, honey," my mother would say, or "that's something to consider," without ever confirming any plans. One afternoon, I arrived unannounced with lunch for my parents and overheard my mother on the phone in the kitchen. "We want to keep it intimate," she was saying. "Yes, exactly, just immediate family this time." She noticed me in the doorway and quickly ended the call. When I asked who she was talking to, she mentioned a distant cousin I barely remembered. The conversation left me with a vague sense of unease, but I dismissed it as overthinking. Perhaps they wanted a smaller gathering than I had imagined, which was certainly their right. As the renovation entered its final stages, additional costs continued to accumulate. The outdoor lighting system needed upgraded wiring. The grill my father had selected was more expensive than initially budgeted, and the native plants for the garden area cost more than Sophia had estimated due to a regional shortage. I handled each expense without complaint, knowing that these details would make the difference between a nice backyard and an extraordinary one. My total investment had now reached close to $16,000, but seeing my parents' reaction to the nearly completed space made every dollar worth it. The day Marcus and his crew finished the major construction, my parents stood in their transformed backyard with expressions of wonder. The stone patio extended gracefully from the back door, its warm tones complementing the house. The fire pit area looked inviting with its circular stone seating. The outdoor kitchen gleamed with new appliances and granite countertops. The garden areas were freshly planted with colourful perennials that would bloom for years to come. My father walked slowly around the space, running his hand along the stonework with appreciation. "This craftsmanship is outstanding," he said quietly. My mother was already envisioning gatherings in the space, pointing out where tables could be placed and how the flow would work for serving food. "It's perfect for the anniversary party," I commented, trying once again to get details about the event. "How many people are you expecting?" My mother exchanged a quick glance with my father before answering. "Just a small group. We want the first gathering to be special." I nodded, still excited about attending the celebration in the space I had helped create. Little did I know that I would soon discover the true meaning behind my mother's evasive answers and uncomfortable glances. 3 days before my parents' anniversary celebration, the backyard renovation was finally complete. Marcus and his crew had added the finishing touches, installing the outdoor speakers my father had requested, placing solar-powered path lights along the garden walkway, and making final adjustments to the grill and fire pit. Everything looked even more beautiful than I had imagined. That morning, I went shopping for a special anniversary gift for my parents, something meaningful to complement the backyard renovation. I selected a custom-made wind chime, crafted by a local artist, with 5 chimes representing each decade of their lives together, plus the new one they were entering. I also bought a new dress for the party, a cheerful floral print that seemed perfect for a summer celebration. I was at home that afternoon wrapping the gift when my phone rang. The caller ID showed my Aunt Linda's name. I answered with a smile in my voice, assuming she was calling to coordinate some aspect of the upcoming celebration. "Kelly, darling, how are you?" Aunt Linda's voice had its usual enthusiastic tone. "I'm great, Aunt Linda. Just getting ready for Saturday. The backyard looks amazing." "Oh, I bet it does. Your mum has shown me some pictures. You really went above and beyond with that gift." We chatted pleasantly for a few minutes about the renovation, her recent vacation, and my work. Then, just as the conversation seemed to be winding down, she said something that stopped me cold. "So since you won't be at the party, I was wondering if you'd like to meet for lunch next week. I'd love to hear more about your business." I felt a sudden chill despite the warm summer day. "What do you mean, won't be at the party?" I asked, certain I had misheard her. There was an awkward pause on the line. "Oh," she finally said, her voice dropping to an uncomfortable register. "I thought you knew." "Knew what exactly?" My heart was pounding now, a sick feeling spreading through my stomach. "Well, your parents decided to make the anniversary party immediate family only. You know, to keep it intimate." I struggled to make sense of her words. "Aunt Linda, I am immediate family. I'm their daughter." "Oh, of course you are, sweetie." She backpedaled quickly. "I just meant they're keeping it very small. Just your parents, me and Uncle David, your cousins, and your siblings." The room seemed to tilt slightly. "My siblings, Jack and Amanda, are coming." "Yes, didn't you know they're flying in as a surprise? Your mum has been so excited planning it." My mind raced trying to process this information. My brother and sister, who lived across the country and rarely visited, were flying in for this celebration. My aunt, uncle, and cousins were invited. Yet somehow I, who lived 20 minutes away and had paid for the entire backyard renovation, was not included. "I don't understand," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Why wouldn't they invite me to their anniversary party?" Aunt Linda sighed, sounding uncomfortable. "Well, you know how busy you are with your business, Kelly. Your mum mentioned you work most weekends. I think they just assumed you wouldn't have time." This explanation made no sense. I had taken time off work to oversee the renovation. I had been involved in every aspect of creating the space specifically for this celebration. How could they possibly think I wouldn't make time for their anniversary? "That's not true," I said firmly. "I've been looking forward to this party for months. I paid for the entire backyard renovation specifically so they could host this celebration." "Well, I'm sure there's just been a misunderstanding," Aunt Linda replied, her voice falsely bright. "You should talk to your parents about it. I probably got confused." But the sinking feeling in my stomach told me this was no misunderstanding. As I thanked my aunt and ended the call, my hands were shaking. I immediately tried calling my father, but the call went to voicemail. Same with my mother. The silence felt deliberate, confirming my worst fears. I sat on my couch, the beautifully wrapped anniversary gift mocking me from the coffee table. The enormity of the betrayal washed over me in waves. Not only had my parents excluded me from their celebration, but they had done so while allowing me to spend thousands of dollars creating the perfect venue for an event I wouldn't be allowed to attend. After 30 minutes of unanswered calls and increasingly frantic text messages, I grabbed my keys. This wasn't a conversation I could have over the phone. I needed to look my parents in the eyes and hear directly from them why they had excluded me from their anniversary celebration. I drove to my parents' house with my thoughts racing and my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. The 20-minute drive gave me time to cycle through emotions. Disbelief, hurt anger, and back again. By the time I pulled into their driveway, I was struggling to hold back tears. My mother answered the door, surprise evident on her face. "Kelly, we weren't expecting you today." I stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. I just got off the phone with Aunt Linda. I said, my voice surprisingly steady, despite the storm inside me. She mentioned something interesting about the anniversary party. My mother's face immediately changed, the surprise replaced by discomfort. She busied herself straightening items on the entryway table. Oh, what did she say? She said I'm not invited, that it's immediate family only. I made air quotes around the phrase, unable to keep the bitterness from my voice. Is that true, Mom? She wouldn't meet my eyes. It's not that you're not invited, Kelly. We're just keeping it very small. Small enough for Aunt Linda, Uncle David, and all the cousins, though. And apparently Jack and Amanda are flying in. My mother sighed, finally looking at me. We wanted to keep it intimate, just family. I am family. My composure cracked, my voice rising. I'm your daughter. How can you possibly consider Aunt Linda's family more immediate than me? It's complicated, Kelly. We didn't want to burden you with another family obligation. You're so busy with your work and you've already done so much with the backyard. Her explanation made no sense. I had never indicated that family gatherings were a burden. If anything, I had repeatedly expressed excitement about the anniversary celebration. Just then we heard the front door open. My father walked in, stopping short when he saw me standing in the living room. "Kelly, what brings you by?" His tone was casual, as if he didn't immediately sense the tension in the room. "Dad, why am I not invited to your anniversary party?" I asked directly. My father glanced at my mother before responding. "You're making a big deal out of nothing. It's just a small gathering." "A small gathering of 25 people that somehow doesn't include your own daughter," I countered, having glimpsed my mother's guest list on the counter. "The daughter who paid over $13,000 to renovate your backyard, specifically for this event. The renovation was a gift," my father said, his voice hardening. "Gifts don't come with strings attached." His words hit me like a physical blow. I had never considered my contribution as anything but a gift of love, something to bring joy to my parents and create a space for family to gather. The suggestion that I expected something in return felt deeply unfair. "This isn't about strings attached," I said, fighting to keep my voice steady. "This is about basic consideration. You let me invest thousands of dollars in creating the perfect space for a celebration. I'm now being told I can't attend. How is that remotely acceptable?" My mother stepped forward, her expression placating. "You could stop by early to see everyone before the actual dinner," she suggested, as if offering a generous compromise. "Around 4 o'clock would work well." The casual cruelty of her suggestion left me speechless. I was being offered the opportunity to stop by a party at my parents' house in a backyard I had paid for before being expected to leave, so the real celebration could begin. "Do you hear yourselves?" I finally managed to ask. "You're treating me like an acquaintance, not your daughter. Why would you exclude me while including extended family? What have I done to deserve this?" My father's expression remained unmoved. "We made our decision about the guest list. I'm sorry if you're disappointed, but that's how it is." In that moment, I saw my parents clearly for perhaps the first time in my adult life. Behind the facade of family-first values and sacrifices made for their children, there was a coldness I had never fully recognized. They valued appearances and traditions over genuine connection, and somehow I had become expendable in their narrative of family. I felt tears welling up, but refused to let them fall. I've spent my entire life believing that family comes first. I stayed in Portland while Jack and Amanda moved away. I've been here for every holiday, every emergency, every time you needed help with the house or the car or anything else. And this is how you repay that loyalty. My mother reached out as if to touch my arm, but I stepped back. "Kelly, you're overreacting. This isn't personal." "Not personal," I laughed incredulously. "Excluding your daughter from your anniversary celebration while including every other family member isn't personal. What would you call it then?" Neither of them had a good answer. The silence stretched between us, filled with 32 years of misaligned expectations and unspoken resentments. "I need to go," I finally said, turning toward the door. I couldn't bear to look at the backyard at all that beautiful stonework and carefully selected plants that were meant to bring our family together. As I drove home, tears finally streaming down my face, my phone buzzed with a text from my father. Don't be dramatic. We'll see you another time. That night, I lay awake in bed staring at the ceiling as I contemplated my relationship with my parents. Had it always been this conditional? Had I simply not noticed the signs that my presence was valued less than my contributions? The financial investment in their backyard now seemed like the perfect metaphor for our relationship. I gave and gave, while they took without true appreciation. By morning, my sadness had hardened into resolve. I had always lived by my father's teaching that family comes first. But perhaps it was time to redefine what family truly meant. The next morning, I called in sick to work for the first time in years. My mind was too consumed with the situation to focus on client meetings. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee, reviewing the financial arrangements I had made for my parents' backyard renovation. The project had been structured with an initial payment of $5,500, followed by additional payments as work progressed. The final payment of $4,200 was scheduled to process in 2 days, covering the last details of the project and the contractor's final fee. There were also several smaller payments pending for the additional landscaping work and lighting installations. As a financial advisor, I understood contracts and payment obligations better than most. I knew that legally I had already committed to these expenses by signing agreements with Marcus and the other service providers. But I also knew that the payments hadn't processed yet. I had options. I spent the morning in an internal debate about the ethics and emotional consequences of my choices. Was it wrong to withhold payment for work that was essentially complete? Would I be punishing the contractors for my parents' actions? Or was this a necessary boundary after such a profound betrayal? Around noon, I called my best friend Danielle, who had always been my moral compass in difficult situations. "They did what?" she exclaimed after I explained the situation. Her outrage was validating. "After you spent all that money on their backyard, that's beyond inconsiderate, Kelly. That's cruel." "I'm thinking about cancelling the remaining payments," I admitted. "The work is mostly done, but the final payments haven't processed yet." There was a pause while Danielle considered this. Normally, I'd say that's not the right move, but in this case, they used you, Kelly. They let you invest thousands in a space for a party they knew you wouldn't be attending. That's not just thoughtless, it's calculated. Her assessment aligned with the conclusion I had been approaching. This wasn't a misunderstanding or an oversight. My parents had made deliberate choices that demonstrated a fundamental lack of respect for me. "What about the contractors, though?" I asked. "It's not their fault." "Talk to them," Danielle suggested. "Explain the situation. Maybe there's a compromise that ensures they get paid, but allows you to withdraw from the project." After our conversation, I felt more certain about my path forward. I contacted my bank to stop the scheduled payments, then called Marcus directly. He answered on the second ring. "Kelly, I was just about to call you," he said cheerfully. "We're putting the finishing touches on the garden lighting today. Your parents are going to love it." "Actually, Marcus, that's why I'm calling." I took a deep breath. "There's been a change in circumstances. I need to cancel the remaining work and stop the final payments." "Is there a problem with the quality?" His concern was immediate. "If something's not right, we can fix it." "No, your work has been exceptional," I assured him. "This is a personal matter." I briefly explained the situation, feeling awkward but determined. To my surprise, Marcus was understanding. "I've been in business 20 years, and family disputes are more common than you'd think. The major work is done anyway. We're just adding the decorative elements now." We worked out an arrangement where he would receive partial payment for the completed work with no obligation to finish the remaining details. He agreed to speak with the other subcontractors as well. "I appreciate your understanding," I told him sincerely. "Family can be complicated," he replied. "For what it's worth, that backyard won't be the same without those final touches you planned. They'll notice the difference." The thought gave me a small measure of satisfaction. The backyard would be functional but incomplete, perhaps an appropriate metaphor for my relationship with my parents. That afternoon, my brother Jack called. His voice had the forced casualness that told me he already knew about the situation. "So I hear there's some drama about Mom and Dad's party," he began. "It's not drama, Jack. It's about respect." I explained my perspective concisely. "Come on, Kelly. You know how they are. Just let it go. You've always been the responsible one who smooths things over." His dismissive attitude ignited my anger anew. "That's exactly the problem. I'm tired of being taken for granted while you and Amanda drop in occasionally and are treated like returning royalty. What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I've been here, Jack. Every holiday, every emergency, every time they needed help. I stayed close while you and Amanda built lives elsewhere, and that's fine. It was my choice. But to be excluded from this celebration when I literally created the space for it, that crosses a line. So you're punishing them by cancelling the payments. That seems petty. I'm establishing a boundary, I corrected him. And honestly, Jack, you don't get to judge my response from thousands of miles away when you haven't been dealing with this for years. Mum's really upset, he countered. I think she's going to call you. She knows my number, I replied. But unless she's calling to sincerely apologize and invite me to the party, I don't have much to say. I'll tell them you're still angry, he sighed. Tell them whatever you want. You will anyway. After hanging up, I felt a strange mixture of sadness and liberation. Standing up to my family didn't feel good exactly, but it felt necessary in a way I had never allowed myself to acknowledge before. To my surprise, my sister Amanda called that evening. Unlike Jack, she began the conversation with empathy. I just heard what happened and I'm so sorry, Kelly. That was incredibly thoughtless of Mum and Dad. Her understanding brought tears to my eyes. Thank you for saying that. I was beginning to think I was overreacting. You're not. I would be devastated in your position. She paused. For what it's worth, I didn't know you weren't invited when I agreed to come. I assumed you'd be there. We talked for nearly an hour, sharing perspectives on our family dynamics that we had never discussed before. Amanda admitted feeling guilty about moving away and leaving me to handle our parents alone. I confessed my resentment at being taken for granted while my siblings were celebrated for their occasional visits. I'm still coming for the anniversary, she said eventually. But I want you to know I'm on your side in this. What they did wasn't right. Her support meant more than I could express. For the first time since Aunt Linda's call, I felt validated in my hurt and my response to it. Just as we were saying goodbye, my phone buzzed with a text from my father. Contractor left today. Said remaining work cancelled. What's going on? I took my time crafting a response, wanting to be clear without being cruel. I've cancelled the remaining payments and work. I can't justify investing more money in a space for a celebration I'm not welcome to attend. I hope the party goes well. His reply came almost immediately. This is childish and ungrateful. I didn't respond. Some conversations aren't worth having, especially when the other person isn't truly listening. Instead, I turned off my phone and focused on rebuilding my sense of self-worth that had been so thoroughly shaken by my parents' rejection. The aftermath of my decision to cancel the remaining backyard renovation payments rippled through my family like a stone dropped in still water. My father called multiple times the next day, leaving increasingly agitated voicemails that I couldn't bring myself to listen to beyond the first few seconds. My mother sent several texts that oscillated between guilt-inducing, I can't believe you would do this to us, and placating, we can talk about this after the anniversary. I let all these messages go unanswered, needing space to process my feelings without being pulled back into their narrative. For perhaps the first time in my adult life, I was prioritizing my emotional well-being over my parents' expectations. The anniversary party happened as planned that Saturday. I spent the day hiking in Forest Park, deliberately choosing an activity that would keep me away from my phone and any social media updates. Despite my efforts, I couldn't help checking Instagram that evening, where I saw photos posted by my cousins showing the celebration in my parents' backyard. The images showed a gathering that looked festive but incomplete. The space was beautiful. The stonework and garden areas I had carefully planned were visible in the background. But I could also see where finishing touches were missing. The specialty lighting hadn't been installed, leaving dark corners in the evening photos. The custom outdoor cushions I had ordered hadn't arrived. The professional landscaping around the fire pit remained unfinished. More painful than these physical absences was seeing my family gathered without me. My brother and sister smiled for the camera standing beside our parents, who beamed with pride. Aunt Linda and Uncle David posed with their children and grandchildren. Everyone looked happy, apparently unbothered by my absence. I closed the app and poured myself a glass of wine, allowing myself to feel the complex emotions washing through me. There was sadness, certainly, but also a growing sense of clarity. These photos showed me a family that could celebrate without me, that could exclude me without apparent remorse. It hurt, but it also confirmed that my decision to establish boundaries had been necessary. The weeks following the party were quiet. My parents made no attempt to reach out after the initial flurry of angry messages. My brother returned to Chicago without contacting me again. Only my sister maintained communication, sending occasional texts of support and updates about her life in California. The silence from my parents wasn't entirely surprising, but it was telling. In their worldview, I had committed the unforgivable sin of refusing to conform to their expectations. By cancelling the payments and asserting my own needs, I had broken an unspoken family contract, where my role was to give without question or complaint. After 3 weeks of this painful silence, I decided to seek professional help. I found a therapist named Dr. Reynolds, who specialised in family dynamics and boundary issues. Our first session was revelatory. What you're describing sounds like a family system where your value was determined by your utility, she observed after hearing my story. Your parents appreciated what you did for them, not necessarily who you are. But they always talked about how important family was. I countered, still struggling to reconcile their words with their actions. Some people confuse family loyalty with family control, Dr. Reynolds explained. True family connection respects individuality and boundaries. It doesn't demand sacrifice without reciprocity. Over the following weeks, our sessions helped me understand patterns that had been present throughout my life. The way my parents had always praised my reliability while taking it for granted. How they celebrated my siblings' independence while expecting my constant presence. The subtle ways they had trained me to put their needs above my own. Establishing boundaries isn't selfish, Dr. Reynolds assured me during one particularly difficult session. It's necessary for healthy relationships. The question now is what kind of relationship you want with your parents moving forward. I wasn't sure how to answer that question. Part of me wanted to maintain the distance that now felt protective, while another part mourned the loss of the family connection I had always valued. 6 weeks after the anniversary party, my mother finally reached out with a text message. "We miss you. Can we talk?" After discussing it with Dr. Reynolds, I agreed to meet my mother at a neutral location, a coffee shop midway between our homes. I arrived early, choosing a table in the corner that would allow us privacy for what would likely be a difficult conversation. My mother looked smaller somehow when she entered the cafe, more uncertain than I was accustomed to seeing her. She ordered a tea and sat across from me, her hands fidgeting with the paper napkin. "You look well," she began awkwardly. "Thank you," I replied, waiting for her to address the actual issue between us. After several minutes of small talk that we both knew was merely postponing the inevitable, she finally sighed and met my eyes directly. "I owe you an apology, Kelly. Excluding you from the anniversary party was thoughtless and hurtful." Her acknowledgement surprised me. I had expected justifications or deflections, not a direct apology. "Why did you do it?" I asked the question that had haunted me for weeks. She looked down at her tea. "It's complicated. Your father and I, we've always had different relationships with you than with Jack and Amanda. They left, but you stayed. Sometimes I think we came to see you as an extension of ourselves rather than your own person. That doesn't explain excluding me from a family gathering. No, it doesn't." She took a deep breath. "The truth is, we've taken you for granted. When Jack and Amanda said they could come, we got excited about having them home. You're always here, always reliable. We didn't think about how it would feel for you to be excluded. Even after I spent thousands of dollars renovating your backyard, specifically for that event, I couldn't keep the hurt from my voice. That makes it worse, I know." Her eyes filled with tears. "We were thoughtless and selfish. I can see that now. Your father still doesn't fully understand why you're so upset, but I do. We hurt you deeply, and I'm truly sorry." Her apology felt genuine, but it also highlighted the continuing problem with my father. "And Dad, he still thinks I overreacted." "He's struggling," she admitted. "He sees the cancelled payments as a betrayal. He believes families should forgive unconditionally, even when they're the ones who caused the harm in the first place," I asked incredulously. "He's from a different generation, Kelly. In his family, you never questioned your parents no matter what." I nodded, understanding the generational differences, but not accepting them as an excuse. "I can't go back to how things were, Mom. I need respect, not just appreciation for what I contribute." "I understand," she said quietly. "Would you be willing to have dinner with us sometime to start rebuilding?" I considered her offer carefully. "Not yet," I finally replied. "I need more time. And I need to know that Dad is willing to acknowledge how hurtful his actions were, not just demand forgiveness." She seemed disappointed, but nodded. "I'll give you space, and I'll talk to your father." As we parted, she hugged me tightly. "I love you, Kelly, not for what you do for us, but for who you are. I'm sorry we haven't shown that clearly." Her words were healing, even if they couldn't immediately repair the damage that had been done. I left our meeting feeling cautiously hopeful that with time and continued boundary setting, we might eventually build a healthier relationship. My father remained distant, unwilling, or unable to acknowledge his role in the conflict. I accepted this as his limitation, focusing instead on nurturing relationships that were mutually respectful and supportive. My sister Amanda became an unexpected ally in this process. During her next visit to Portland, we spent a weekend together without our parents, strengthening our bond as adults rather than just siblings. She understood my need for boundaries and supported my decision to maintain distance until our father could accept responsibility for his actions. The months following the anniversary party became a period of personal growth and discovery. I began hosting small gatherings at my own apartment, creating new traditions with friends who had become chosen family. These gatherings lacked the history of our family events, but they offered something more valuable: genuine appreciation and reciprocity. 6 months after our confrontation, my father finally reached out with a handwritten letter. His words were stilted, clearly difficult for him to write, but sincere in their own way. I've been thinking about what happened. I still don't fully understand your reaction, but I miss having you in our lives. If you're willing to talk, I'm willing to listen. It wasn't the full acknowledgement I had hoped for, but it was a beginning. I called him and we agreed to meet, starting the slow, careful process of rebuilding trust and establishing new patterns of interaction based on mutual respect rather than expectation. The backyard renovation remained incomplete, another metaphor for our relationship. Functional, but with visible gaps where finishing touches should have been. My parents never asked me to reinstate the final payments, perhaps understanding on some level that the incompleteness served as a necessary reminder of the consequences of taking me for granted. Through therapy and personal reflection, I came to understand that true family connection cannot be built on financial sacrifice or obligation. It must be founded on respect, appreciation, and mutual care. The money I spent on that backyard renovation taught me an expensive but invaluable lesson. Self-respect is worth more than any material investment. When my sister mentioned plans to renovate her kitchen the following year, I offered to help her research contractors and materials. But I'll be clear about my boundaries this time, I told her with a smile. My support comes with the expectation of respect, not the assumption of sacrifice. She laughed and hugged me. I wouldn't have it any other way. The experience changed how I defined family. Blood relation matters, but what matters more is how people treat each other. The respect they show, the boundaries they honor, and the love they demonstrate through actions, not just words. I still love my parents deeply, but that love now exists within the context of healthier boundaries and clearer expectations. Our relationship continues to evolve, sometimes painfully, sometimes joyfully, but always with greater authenticity than before. Have you ever had to establish difficult boundaries with family members who took you for granted? How did you handle the situation, and what did you learn from it? Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more stories about navigating complex family dynamics. Remember that setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's essential for healthy relationships and personal growth. Thank you for listening to my story, and I wish you the strength to value yourself as much as you value others.